Oh, dude, you got triple gear. You got the
I'm
medal
going
in the
full.
back. You got the shirt on, and you're drinking out of the water bottle.
Hold
Let's
on,
go.
I got the swim cap next to me if I should put that on.
Yeah, put the swim cap up for the quarter. All right. Welcome to another episode of the Tribal Training Podcast. We got a race recap pod here with Matt Bank. Um, Matt Bank, I'm excited to chat with you today, and I know that I know you're interested in the idea of doing a pod, so I'm excited to have you here. As we roll these out, I got to make it clear and obvious to the team, right? Because I'm not just selecting people, right, to do race recap pods. I want to make it very clear. There are people who speak up, and there are people who make it clear that they are interested in doing this stuff. But they don't just say, "Hey, I want to do a podcast." They show up to all the other team stuff too. So I just recorded a pod yesterday with Cameron on Ironman Nice. We got this one rolling today. And you two guys are two guys who are on a majority of the team calls. You're engaged very closely with me and keep me updated in your process. And I'm excited to chat with you here today and open the floor to hear how the race went down for you.
Yeah, well, funny enough, I remembered like randomly a couple nights ago, probably our second call ever, like right when I signed up, I said to you, I was like, Ryan, I am going to be your exact marketing like case for someone who did a 70.3 by themselves with some $40 online programming, hated the experience, and I'm going to join tribal training and I'm going to smash it. And I'm going to be like your perfect marketing, like ICP. And I had completely forgot I ever said that until like 3 nights ago. And I was like, oh, that's kind of funny. It
Well, you've been
happened.
living it out the whole time, dude, because
Yeah.
you came into tribal thinking that you were getting, more customized training, right? And you were getting a coach to help you out. And of course, that has been part of it, but you've been somebody who's taken advantage of every other resource that we've got going on. You're writing and you're publishing online. You're leaning into faith, and reading the Torah with Goldstein. You're showing up to the symposium calls. You're on the office hours calls. You're on the community connection calls. You're keeping me posted on just what you have going on in life. So, you're not only, I would say, the ideal, marketing case study, but for me as a coach, the people who lean in the most are the people who I feel like I get to support the most, and I get to see them grow the most, not only through training but everything else. So it's been rad, dude, and I'm super pumped that you took down the race, and it seems like it was a great experience for you. So where do you want to start? I don't have an exact playbook here. I want to open it up to you.
Yeah. You know, just start race morning.
All right, let's
Um,
go. Race morning. What went down?
yeah,
You're in
woke
Happy
up,
Valley. You've got your wife and two kids there, right?
wife and two kids, my brother-in-law, so my wife's brother, uh, was also doing this race. He's been doing endurance he's been doing running for quite some time, like a decade. He broke
Okay.
his femur a few years back and he's whatever, but he's been in the endurance world for a bit. Um, Middle endurance, right? Like half marathon type stuff.
Right. But running consistently
Running
in an
consistently for a
endurance
very
sense
long
for some
time and
time.
fast. Yeah, and fast.
Nice.
So he was there with his wife and their 1-year-old. And it actually worked out because his wife's mom has a house at Penn State, 5 minutes from Beaver Stadium, because her other daughter played on the volleyball team at Penn State.
Oh,
So
nice.
it worked out. Lodging was nice.
So you guys stayed as a family all together.
We stayed as a big unit, which I was a little nervous about, but it worked out.
Nice.
And so woke up 3:30, headed downstairs before my brother-in-law Joe was up, and just wanted to do like some reflection and write a little bit and drink a coffee in silence. And I was like, nice, I'm gonna write about how far I've come and my journey and this. And all I wanted to do is just write like a thank you note to my wife. And
Oh, nice.
yeah, and I think it just set a really good tone for what's to come and what I believe was my, because I didn't have like this big sparking transcendent moment, but as I like reflect on the race, like there's a constant theme, and I think that's kind of the start of it. Um,
What were you specifically like grateful and thankful for from her?
you know, I'm the one out there, and that's easy. Like I get to go just race, and I get to go like have fun and be in the moment and see the crowds and everybody, the aid stations are for me. And what do you need? What do you, and she has to go stroll two kids around. One's on a little balance bike flying away. It's hot, and to keep everybody up and put, naps down, and okay, who needs a bottle? Who needs to eat? And this is like throughout the entire experience, right? Like I wake up at 4 o'clock on Saturdays to do my long rides, but they go to 9, right? Like my workouts go to 9 and two kids are up. And so she has to take them to the diner or the, and so it's just a whole lot of work, and I get the easy stuff. I get to go train, um, easy. And so it was just,
Have you had that mindset like the whole time you've been endurance, even when you were training on your own last year, or is that like kind of a new perspective that you've had since you joined the team?
when I was training on my own, I had it, but I let that be an excuse to almost stop training.
Oh,
Um, and it was like, oh, I can't do this long session because I need to go be a good husband, or I need to go be a good dad. And like this time, working with you and working through just things, it's like you can do both. You know, there's a way to do both and a way to actually do better
what do you
at
think
both.
was like the through line on elevating that for you? Like, is it more communication with her? Is it better planning? Like, what are the day-to-day things that have taken you out of the mindset of training means I'm being selfish in a negative way to training is this thing that I need to do for myself, but I also ensure that, I'm fueling the family tank in these ways and I'm showing up, afterwards in these ways.
Well, your famous thing is like offense versus defense. And so communicating upfront, having having a very repeatable program, right?
Mm,
Like times may change, but like every Saturday I'm doing a long ride, possibly a run after, right?
mm-hmm.
But like it's always going to be the same. Every Tuesday I'm doing, Tuesday and Thursday I'm at the pool. So you can't go to the gym. But Monday, Wednesday, Friday, you can go to the gym, and I'll wait to, do my runs or my bike. So having that repeatable process and that communication of like, what does the schedule look like? We didn't have to do it on a weekly basis because like after 3 weeks, we knew it was up.
You just fell into the rhythm of it.
Yeah.
And actually, one thing I remember from you is that when we had first started, I forget the exact split that I had you on, but you hit me up and you were like, "Hey, can we move swims to be Tuesday, Thursday? Because my wife Alyssa wants to go to F45 right on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, so that would work out better." And I'm like, "Yeah, there's no issue with that at all. That's great."
Right. And with the old program, I would have to pay for training plans plus, and I would have to move every single week. I would have to move the
So
Monday,
would you
Wednesday
be like
swims.
if so in that example, right? Because I can kind of assume what somebody would do following a stock plan, but you give me the real example. Like if you had a swim on a Monday and a Wednesday, but now all of a sudden you're not going to the pool those days because those are training days for your wife. So it's easier for you to run or ride on the trainer in the basement. Like what are you doing? Are you then shifting everything back a day and you're playing catch up the whole time or what?
No, what you end up doing, and this is real, is you end up just using Training Peaks less. And in your head, you're like, okay, I can't swim Monday, even though I'm supposed to. So I'll do that run today on Monday, and I'll do the swim tomorrow on Tuesday. And then, 2 weeks of this mental gymnastics go by, and all of a sudden, you're like, yeah, I feel like I did everything, right? And then you're 2 months in, and you like realize you haven't swam in 3 weeks, and because like
Uh,
you're just not following the plan, right? You're creating the plan now. Like the workout's there, but you're not following anything. It's just like Googling swim workout for triathlon and being like, yeah, I'll do that one day. So you
and
end
so
up
that whole
playing, yeah.
process would basically allow you to not be doing as much as you think you are.
Exactly. That's exactly right. Like you
Yeah.
think you're doing it, right? You're like, I'm in it, I'm doing the work. And then there's no accountability of looking back and seeing everything red. And you're like, of course it's red because I had to move everything around. But like you didn't do it,
Yeah.
and there's no one holding you accountable because you can't even like look at your metrics.
Yeah,
So
that's
that is
beautiful.
what
That's good.
happened.
And then I would also assume that like there's some level of that process is stressful as fuck.
Yeah.
So
It,
the whole time you're thinking about, am I doing enough? I think I'm doing enough. You're telling yourself you're doing enough so that you can drop a little bit of the stress, but really you're not doing enough.
yeah, I
Right?
mean, yeah, you can't, it's so much worse. It's like, Cameron a couple weeks ago was like, oh yeah, when you were saying like how I write my swim workouts out the night before, and Cameron's like, oh, that's a good idea. I'm like, how could you possibly remember, like the stress of trying to remember a swim workout while swimming is hard. And so it's like that times 10.
Well, I think that's a good example of putting in, an extra ounce of preparation so that you can actually do it right.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm not thinking about anybody specifically here, but I'm just thinking that as a broader concept, if you aren't writing down the actual workout, are you really keeping your phone by the pool deck and checking the thing the whole time? Or are you just going and saying, fuck it, I need to figure out how to swim 1.2 or 2.4 miles. So I just need distance. And now all of a sudden you think you know what you need, right? When in reality, we need to be like kind of drilling down and working on pace changing and getting better in these certain ways and then getting the high intensity segment of the session, right? Which is super valuable in swimming, right? Way too many guys, a huge mistake that I see is that they just think that they need distance. So they just check down to, I need to swim far. Well, now all of a sudden they've completely lost the threshold intervals, right? Now all of a sudden they're not doing nearly enough high intensity work throughout the week. And so, they're getting better in some sense that they're showing up a lot, but the keys, right, that I'm kind of building into the plan that might not be broadly broadcast all the time, right, are completely lost.
Yeah. And I mean, I want to keep that thought for when I get into the actual swim because that's so relevant to my
Okay.
swim. Um, so I'll keep going. I'll move a little faster so we can get to the swim because of
Sure.
that point is so relevant of the higher threshold work in a pool, which you wouldn't really think about doing it on your own. But so we do the morning, reflect. My brother-in-law comes down. I've had one coffee. I've taken care of bathroom business, and that's always the most stressful for me. Like, will that happen? And so that happens. Great. Um, Happens a few times, which is even better. And get some food down, and we go make the 5-minute drive over to Beaver Stadium to get on the shuttles. Trevor's already hitting me up, like, "Hey, I'm gonna be there, and then I'm just gonna drive over. So if you guys need anything, I can grab it for you." Meanwhile, like Trevor, such a legend. I
Legend.
thought he was kidding on the last call where he was like, "Yeah, I'm gonna be there." I'm like, "Ha ha ha," and then he just shows up, and he's there the whole weekend, and yeah, he'll come back too. But such a legend, such a great friend and person, and just genuine human being. So get there, and on the way there, I would just like again random thought the night before, or maybe 2 nights before, of like the one song I want to listen to is Mac Miller song, who is like very influential to my high school to college transition. And I went to college at Penn State for those who may not know. Um, Best Day Ever, Mac Miller. And it just was perfect. Like, life couldn't get, I'm not going to sing because I'm the worst singer on planet Earth, but like life couldn't get better. This is going to be the best day ever. And it's like, if you listen to the whole chorus of that song, it is just the most, if you can go into any sort of event with that chorus running through your head, it's hard not to smile. It's hard not to be happy and feel gratitude and um, just be present. So that was, we only had time for one song. I took the aux cord, took control, and listened to the one song, get on the bus. Vibes are feeling good, drinking my electrolytes. Get there, triple check everything. It's two transitions, I think, kind of like Chattanooga. So the day before is kind of annoying where you have to drive 25 minutes to go put your bike and then, set up your run bag and your
Because the
bike
transition that
bag.
you guys drove to was basically the one where you'd finish the bike and start the run, and that's close to the finish line generally. And the
Correct.
swim start was at a reservoir a couple of miles up the road, and that
25
was
minutes.
25 minutes up the road, and that was where you had to drop your bike the day before. And so when you guys drove, you drove to the transition by the bike exit and the run course, but then the shuttles you're talking about drove you 25 minutes up the road to where the swim was, and then the bike would start.
Correct. Which is very different from my previous experience of Atlantic City, which is no longer, good riddance.
Is it no longer
It's
a
all
race?
one spot. It's no longer a race. Last year was the last year.
Oh, interesting.
Which, like, maybe I think the guy who was running it, who had run it for like 10 years, was just pissed. And like it was just compared to how the Penn State one was run, it was like two different universes. Penn State was ran so beautifully, so organized. I think there was like 2,200 people racing and 1,000 volunteers.
Whoa.
It was ran. I felt like a professional athlete throughout the entire thing, but just because of how well it was ran, it was just really smooth. And it was only the second year, and they made a lot of good changes apparently from year 1 to year 2.
Yeah.
And so, mad props to that team. Because I'm sure they're listening. So we get there, everything's good. We find Charlie, meet his wife.
How did you spot Charlie?
It's really hard to find somebody like that.
I was wondering if you guys
crowd.
would be able to see him.
Yeah. When you have like a 6'9" giant wearing a giant axe on his chest, it's just tough to find somebody. No, it was, everybody just looks at him, 6'9", he's bigger than LeBron James, like, just to put it in reference. Like, LeBron James is 6'8", like 270. This guy is 6'9", 280, huge smile, and just like, everyone looks at him. It's not a normal size human. I'm not a normal size human. I'm, below, but, everybody can just ignore me. But we take some pictures and get out into the corral. And we're, me, my brother-in-law, Joe, and Charlie are all in the 33 to 37, I think was the thing. I think we could have gone up one more, but we are all really comfortable with where we were. We had some space. It wasn't like super tight, and it's a no wetsuit swim. So the water was like 77.2 or something. So not even close to a wetsuit. And a lot of people were worrying about that. We were just doing our thing. I will say I had to pee in the corral, and it makes peeing a lot weirder when you're not wearing a wetsuit and the bottom of your, triathlon suit is like light gray, and all of a sudden there's just a ton of liquid coming down, and there's people around you, just like, you can feel them staring at you, and you're just like, sorry, this is what my coach told me to do, but yeah, we couldn't wait in those lines. So we do that, we get all ready, and the three of us kind of just walk up as they shoot the gun, and we all wanted to be on the left side. So like, we didn't all go in together. We went in kind of one after each other, and I went first. And this is where, having a coach and being open with a coach really made a big difference already. Is we had talked about open water swimming, and I get a little nervous, and, as most do. And you were like, well, what do you do when you open water swim? I was like, well, I go and I start swimming. It's like, okay, why don't you do like 3 minutes of just chilling in the water, get comfortable, and then just do a little swim, and then chill and get comfortable. And like, you have to get, and so, you see everybody like sprinting into the water and just like running for, and, diving. And it's like, I wasn't going to do that. So I walked in, and before I started swimming, it felt like 10 seconds, but it was probably like 1.5 seconds. I just like took a deep breath, and I was like, I'm in the water. And like mentally, I was just like, okay. And I swam, and I swam on the left side. Never, I got hit once as I was making a turn into like the first right turn. But swam on the left side. There was one guy to the left of me, which was nice. It was like the most beautiful water. I could still be in that water. Like,
was it like clear? How much? I mean, it was a lake, so I'm not assuming it's clear, but like,
no, but like at the beginning, you could see the bottom.
Oh, nice.
It was it was beautiful.
Nice.
And you're in this amazing scene of like, the mountains of Pennsylvania all around you with the big trees and everything's
Right.
green and it's like the sun's like kind of up and like it was just like wonderful. But even as serene as that sounds, I went and I looked at my data. My heart rate during the swim was like 170 the entire time. And I was going like not fast for me, not slow. I think I finished in like 40 minutes.
I was
Swam the
really
entire
impressed with
time.
both of your guys' swim times, especially that it was no wetsuit. I mean,
Yeah.
40 minutes for you and 43 for Charlie. I thought that was great.
We were both really pumped about it. Like I looked at 40 and I was like, what the fuck? Like that is because like people are passing me on the right, but it's hard. You can't really like
Was it you said you're on the left. Was it a clockwise or counterclockwise? Like were you on the
it
outside or
was
the inside?
clockwise.
So you're on the outside.
I was on the outside.
You gave yourself some space.
I gave myself some space. I just felt better there. On the back half, I did get a little bit closer because I wanted to start like I was just having a good time. Like I was like, let me
You
see
were
if I can like
comfortable.
stay
You
on
were ready to
people's
start
feet.
letting it go a little bit.
Yeah, I was like, let me stay on some people's feet. Like let me see what it's all about. Like let me like race a little bit here. And that was fun. But like the swim just it was one of those times where I was just like, I am happy to be swimming.
Nice. Which is so opposite of you had that open water swim that you did a month or 6 weeks ago, right? And that was where you just tried to jump in and just rip off 2,000 yards.
Yeah.
And it didn't really go very well.
It went about 400 yards before I was like, I want to die. Like this sucks. And then, even putting that back to my Atlantic City 70.3 swim, which was one of the worst experiences of my life. The water was disgusting. We were in like a marina in Atlantic City and it was like very salty and I hadn't swam in like 6 weeks prior, like before, and like was so nervous and heart rate was 1,000,000,000 plus, swallowing so much water, it was just awful. So this just, again, set the tone for what ended up being a great day.
You mentioned something about the threshold stuff with the swim earlier.
Well, right. Like when we talked a race plan, we set some like heart rate benchmarks. We were like, yeah, your heart rate
really for the bike and the run.
For the bike and the run, but like I think we mentioned like 120 for like the swim, right? Like, and that's kind of usually where I'm at, like 120, 130. I have a higher heart rate, I think, than others. Like I think naturally, but like if I had never pushed in the pool with some of those sprint works, like the 8x25 or the 8x50 or the 6x150 with 25 slow and 50 fast and 25 recover, like if you don't push, I don't survive a 40-minute swim with an average of like 168 heart rate and come out feeling fresh as a daisy, right?
Oh, let's go. This is huge. I'm
like and so I think it's like such a necessary skill because you just don't know how your body's going to react. Like,
right.
I swam yesterday and my average heart rate was like 12. It was like a very easy swim, but it's like you just don't know. So I think that threshold.
So following the workout structure and specifically following the high intensity programming in the swim set you up to, number one, just be more comfortable, right, in the open water. Like if you're just cruising in every single swim, then you're getting from a pool to open water. Open water, you're going to be like nervous, heart rate's high, panicking, feeling like you're out of breath, right? Miserable situation. But not only that, is that it sounds like it allowed you to exit the water without having expended a ton of energy.
Yeah. I mean, and I don't want to get it twisted. Like I'm this perfect saint.
But you follow the swim workouts.
I follow the swim workouts.
Which puts you into a certain category of athlete. I got to be honest about that. Yeah,
that puts you into a swim workouts category. Though. I could probably list off like 4 or 5 where I was like, I need to do 3,100 yards. There's a couple different structures. I'm going to do the structures for the first half, and then I'm going to swim like the second half of just getting the distance. But that's like 4 or 5 throughout 6 months.
Right.
So, but yeah, got out of the swim, saw 40 minutes and like 12 seconds or whatever it was. And I was like, holy shit, that's amazing. I felt really pumped.
No, dude, I was super impressed.
Yeah.
Super impressed. And no wetsuit. Like I can't even emphasize that enough.
Yeah.
With the wetsuit, you would have been like 36.
Yeah. But next time. Next time. And then running up, and you're all disoriented. You're like, ugh. Like you're trying to look cool for the pictures, and my swim pictures did not look cool. But then I see Trevor, and I just get like this burst of energy, and I
Oh,
thought he
let's
was like,
go.
and I just like sprint directly at him like a deranged lunatic. And like he's over the fence, but I still like feel like I almost knocked him down. Like I like just ran directly at him for whatever reason. It's just what I wanted to do in that moment because
Did you
you
give
know
him
it
a
was
high
time to go
five, give him a
race.
hug, dap him up? What was the
Yeah. He
interaction?
was like taking pictures. I gave him a high five. I was gonna like tackle him if he was on this side of the fence. You know, it was time to go race, right? So I was getting into
Nice.
like, leaving the peaceful mindset, although it kind of stayed with me, but it was just great to see him because like my family, the logistics, like it
They
doesn't make
weren't
sense for
at
your
that
family.
swim area because that was 25 miles up the road.
25 miles up the road, too early,
Yeah,
kids, I got two
right.
kids. Like there's no sense of your family being there unless Charlie's wife and I think brother-in-law were there because they're just spectators, right? There's no responsibilities. And so having Trevor there just felt nice. He's rocking the tank. It's my teammate. And he had come up and visited my house and we had done a bike ride together. So like we had, hung out all weekend kind of. So like we're like friendly, like we're friends. And so it's just seeing that guy there is like you feel seen, a little
Yeah.
bit. And so it was just really
And you guys
nice.
have been, I mean, you joined the team in November or so, November or December, and you and Trevor both join team calls consistently.
Yeah.
You're both active in the chat. You guys are engaged with each other on Strava. And then when you're saying that he came up for a bike ride, that was like 3 weeks ago or so, 4 weeks ago, he came up
Yep.
and one of your peak sessions, peak distance sessions on the bike, he rode with you, right? So
Yep.
now all of a sudden you guys have your first kind of hangout in person, and now all of a sudden he's at Happy Valley, and it's like second time you've seen him, but it's like you might as well have known him for years because you've got all of these like kind of touch points. And that to me is just such a cool example. Like that to me is like, you know, relationship building inside of tribal. Like how do you do it? How do you build relationships with guys that it's mostly online, right? It starts as online, but then all of a sudden, you got opportunities to get together and you guys are hanging out. He's with your kids. Next thing you know, you're sprinting to him after a 40-minute swim in your 70.3.
Yeah. And I love Trevor. And we took a great picture and it's one of my favorite pictures. And
Have I
after
seen
the
it? What's the
race.
picture?
Yeah, he put it in the group. It's after the race where like he's
Oh
kind of
yeah,
like
yeah, yeah,
this.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And
That's a
I
great
just I
picture.
don't know. I just love it. And but like, you know what? You can replace you can't replace Trevor, but like you could put like Blaine, Cameron, Dylan, they're all these guys, Grant, these guys who like have consistently shown up to like all these calls, like Tara, like and not just guys, right? But like I know them. I
Yeah,
feel like I know them. And it's been so great being committing to joining as many of those calls as possible because it's kind of like the same group and we're always looking for more.
right.
But like, I know these people, right? I just feel like I know them and we
Yeah,
talk about real shit and we talk about funny shit and we talk about, who looks like what today. And it's just like friends.
yeah.
Um, and it's really cool. Um, anyways, back to the race. Uh, get on the bike. It's a long transition. You have to run a while to your bike, and then you have to run a while to the road. I put on socks, so I had a towel. Took a bit of fuel, just in my water and a bit of my tailwind, just to start to like get that kick going. That's one thing I think I wish I brought a water bottle into the corral with me because
Oh,
like
to
by
start
the
the swim.
yeah, my throat was like just a little dry, nervousness and whatever, but
Yeah.
I wish I just had like a little extra water there. But yeah, so my transition I think was like 7.5 minutes, and I was actually pretty pumped about that. Because it's just a long transition, so to kind of move,
Just the setup at the reservoir or whatever.
yeah, and you can like go on YouTube and look it up. Like it's a long transition.
Yeah.
But I moved with purpose. I got all my, lubed up everything, which I didn't do during Atlantic City because I was so frantic.
Yeah.
I lowered my heart rate And I walked the bike out, got on the bike, you do a quick little loop, and then you really like start going, and was just like taking notice of who was around me. And it's like, damn, like there's a bunch of legit looking guys around me. And so
Let's go.
yeah, like kind of felt good. And settling in, and I'm happy. And I got one thing on my mind is like finish my first bottle by mile 14, because that's the first aid station. And we get out to the road, and I just start passing people.
Nice.
Like, and it's just rollers at the beginning. It's the most beautiful scenery, the first like 20 miles, call it. It's like a perfect day so far,
Nice.
like weather wise. And you're in like the farm country of Pennsylvania. And I was like, this is why people fall in love with like cycling.
Yeah,
Like
baby.
this
Let's
exact road.
go.
Yeah. And I was like, I'm gonna be a cyclist. Um, it was beautiful. And the first like 20 miles went by in like 0 seconds. And I quickly realized my steady pacing, steady cadence on the uphills passes a lot of people.
Oh, that's what we had
Um,
talked about too. That was like one
we
of your main goals. Let's go, dude.
Yes, we were taking souls, right? And not only were we taking
Just
souls,
steady and consistent, right? Not hammering up them, but like you riding with good rhythm throughout the entire ride, right? On the descents, on the flats, on the uphills. That allowed you to pass people on the uphills. Is that right?
yes, just like there was no push. Now there's a couple like small hills that I was like, I don't feel like changing gears right now. I'm just gonna like smash this real quick. But like the majority of was okay, shift down, shift down, shift down, steady. Awesome. And then, go do the descent, and then there's another hill.
Yeah.
Do the descent, and there's another hill. It's 3,800 feet of elevation.
Shit ton of climbing.
It's insane. Like it's really hard to replicate, like especially where I live, and even on Zwift. Like I feel like I never really like done it. But the first, aid station comes and goes, finished my bottle, grabbed a water bottle, smashed it into my little like tried bottle. Everything was kind of going smooth, felt like a legend. Um get to like mile 27 is the first like intense climb, and like there's a guy there who's like, this is a big climb, get ready, take some fuel. Like, okay, here it comes. um and it's a legit climb. Like I was thinking of Charlie when I was done this climb, and I was like, I don't know how like Isaac Newton would be able to say this guy can go up this hill on a bike, because I mean it really has to be like 12% grade for like 0.6, 0.7 miles. Like it's not short, and it's like straight up a little bit this, and then straight up, and then you kind of like go down.
Yeah.
I was just like, I must have passed 20 people, like maybe 12 people probably on that. And it was just like a steady low ring, small ring, lowest gear. So it's like the easiest I could possibly do. And it was just like, like just breathing out loud as I'm passing people. And I was like, they probably hate me right now, but fuck it. And got up it, got down it, and then it's just hill after hill after hill. But excuse me. What made the hills a little bit more manageable for most of it was just there was hundreds, if not thousands of people throughout the entire course from these like small little towns
Oh, a
that were
lot of
just
fanfare.
lining. Oh my gosh.
Let's go.
Like because like you're passing like farmland, and like how there's houses on like most of those like highways, and
Yep.
there's people with like chairs just watching, cheering, and I must have waved. I basically rode with one hand. Like I would, because the more you wave, the more they cheer for you, and the more they cheer for you, at least for me, the better I do. I like
Yeah.
that. I must have said thank you a billion times. I just felt like a like Formula One driver after they win a race, and you're just like, everybody's just cheering for you. Like that's how I felt, and it felt just like awesome.
And
And
was
I
that something that
give
you like expected to do? Was this kind of surprising to you? Where did this come from?
Trevor said like, oh, wait till you see all the Amish people that like they come out and like, they love it. And so I was expecting like some Amish people, which there definitely were, but like I was not expecting there's people drinking and celebrating, and they're like, like this is an event, like what, and
They're
then
like
there's like
tailgating
just
for you.
families all around and like kids, and everyone has a cowbell and everybody's just like making noise. And I like was not expecting that.
Nice.
And it just made it awesome. Like it's a really hard course, a really hard race, but like it should go on people's list of like one to check out because of how beautiful and how like the community comes out for it. Like it's a
That's
big
really cool.
event. Yeah. Yeah. So the rest of the bike,
You were through, I'm trying to remember the checkpoints on the Ironman tracker, but it seemed like you were flying through the first half of the bike course. I think you were at over 20-mile-an-hour average for a while up through there might have been a couple of early checkpoints. It was like when you started the bike, then there was like a checkpoint that was like only a mile or two into the bike. Then there was one that was, I think, at mile 13. And then there might have been a big gap until the next one was at like 40 or 40.9, I think, at the top of that
yeah.
real big climb.
Yeah. No, there's a point like in those first 20 miles, 26 miles where I'm like looking at I'm like probably averaging like 22 miles per hour. And I'm
Hell
like,
yeah.
holy shit,
What are
I'm
you
going
thinking?
sub
That so
six.
what are you thinking seeing that?
I'm literally saying like, I'm going to finish this race in less than 6 hours, and I am a nut and I am a legend. And like, I'm going to finish this bike ride, which is a hard bike ride, in like less than 3, probably around 2:45. And I am smashing this. And then, you come back to reality. Um, we mentioned like the big hill, and then there's the really big hill, which is 3 miles
And that's
of
at like 37 or 38.
37. Yeah, 37,
And that's the
38.
one that at the top of it was that checkpoint of 40.9.
Yeah. And that one, again, I'm thinking of Charlie, and I'm just like, I don't get it. I'm not smart enough to understand physics of how you get that up, because
Right.
they say 5%, but it's like 7, 8%, 3% for like a second, 7, 8%, 3% for a second of like grade. And it's hard and it's long and it's never ending. And you think you're at the top and then you're not. There's like a slight descent. You're like, finally. And you're like, nope, right back up. And this was actually, and then there, again, there's people around. There was a woman in a chicken suit, and it was right towards the top. And I kind of like messed up my cadence. And again, I had been passing people because I'm going like that steady cadence and like just going. And the woman on the chicken suit was like pretty hilarious. And so like I kind of like swerved a little bit to like go over and say like, that's hilarious, like that's funny. And like I kind of felt something in my hamstring, and I
Okay.
can see the top now. And I'm like, did I just ruin my race because of this woman in a chicken suit? And so I really only I start pedaling with one leg essentially, just to the top. And I'm like, I
Stay
don't
clipped
want
in with
to,
both though.
yeah, I'm still clipped in, but it's really just my right leg doing the work. I get to the top, everything's fine. I feel it a couple more times, but like, it's fine. And then you have to stay 25 miles or less, 25 miles per hour or less on the descent. So you like just climb like 3 miles, and then they're like, sucks. You're going to be on your brakes for the next like 2.5 minutes.
Because there's a very sharp turn at the bottom. Is that right?
Not even
And
that
it's just
sharp.
crazy steep. Is that the idea?
I
They don't want people
like,
flying 40 or 50
I,
miles an hour.
I think it's because it's long. Yeah. Because like I had reached at one hill, I don't know where, 38.5 miles per hour at one point,
Nice.
which is fast. Like
Yeah.
that's my fastest. I don't, because I got a little bit more confident on the downhills as the race went on. But so yeah, you get there, you finish the race. The bike finishes with another grueling uphill. It's like a sharp, a really steep one, and then you kind of come down, and then you climb for about a mile and a half up to Beaver Stadium, up
That's the
University
University
Drive.
Road or whatever that we looked at on the
Yeah.
map.
And it's just like, why, man? Like, I mean, I get why, like that's geography and like how, topography. But it sucks at that point.
You're not
And
flying
like
into transition.
I was smiling, I was happy, but by mile like 45, I was over the hills. Like it's like, you made your point. I get it.
I mean,
Awesome.
3,800 feet of climbing over 56 miles is a shit ton. That is a shit ton.
it felt like that much. Um, but again, like I didn't want to like say anything out loud of like, oh, this sucks or this is hard or whatever. It's just like stay.
Right.
And so
How,
other
but
than
let's
that,
think about your like expectations going into the bike, right? Like how are you feeling as you were finishing the bike relative to maybe how you were expecting the bike to go, how you were hoping the bike to go? I mean, the thing that we spoke on pre-race was that you wanted to push a bit, right? That was like kind of the idea, is that you wanted to kind of let it fly. Obviously a ton of elevation, right? So dealing with that, but how did you come in, and how were just like your vibes compared to your expectations?
I'm very proud of my effort on that bike.
Nice, nice. You
I
should be. You
stayed,
did really, really well.
yeah. It took me 3 hours and 13 minutes, 3,800 feet of elevation. Um, I'll tell you, 3738. So 3,730 feet of elevation. And I yeah, did it in 313. And I stayed with some people who like looked legit. I passed a lot of people who looked legit. I I put out like the effort. Like there was no, I was aero as much as possible. Um, I was grinding, like I was going hard. I think again, heart rate was supposed to be around 145 to 155. I think it was again 170 like the entire time because of the hills and it was starting to get hot. Like I knew it would be higher, but I I think I exceeded actually my expectations of the bike. If you had to like put me on a time of what I thought, I'd say probably like 3.5 hours. And so to finish actually 1 minute slower, which I'm kind of annoyed about, my Atlantic City bike, which has I think about 18 feet of elevation. Um, I'm pumped up about like
Yeah,
I think that's insane. And shows like the progress and just how like dialed in I was there.
yeah. Um, did you have any like it seems like you've mentioned a couple of times, like just observing the other athletes around you and like seeing like legit dudes, right? And that being like a source of confidence for you. Did you have any like expectations of that, or is that kind of a brand new thing for you?
My only experience like before with the other half Ironman was like these people just passing me. Like,
Yeah.
like with the helmets and the whole thing and like just like passing me with, with their big wood wheel or whatever that thing is. Uh and that was my only experience. And then the rest of the time, because like my last race, I had like some crazy stomach cramping. I couldn't fuel and whatever. So the rest of the time I was spending with like the people who are sitting up and like biking for
Just
leisure.
riding a bike.
Um, so yeah, I didn't really have that expectation, which is probably why I took so much note of it. But I also am a observant person, and I get you know energy from being around people that I think of are of high caliber.
Right.
Um, and that's like a theme in this race is like I can be good at this, like in a constrained way. I'm not going to the world championships, and that's totally fine. But like I can be a good triathlete. Like I can be a good biker. I could, these things. And so I kept having that thought and it felt really validating, I'd say, of
Yeah.
like, because you don't know. Like I didn't know what I was going to experience. And like leaving that bike, I was like, okay, fuck, like let's go. Like I want to do this. Like, I want to, pursue it further. So and then one last thing on the bike, like we had a fueling plan.
I was going to ask about the fuel. How'd it go?
Yeah, it went perfectly.
Let's go. Let's go.
Yeah, so the only slip was like I had like this much left in my second bottle before the second aid station. So I had to like pound that real quick. But no, I 2 bottles every aid station, ate my Bobo bar in the third, kind of whatever. 2 bottles. And so it went, exactly to how we wrote it up. I'll ask a question towards the end of like, do we need to switch it around a bit? But like fueled exactly how I was supposed to fuel. And again, compared to my first race, which, I had an insane stomach cramp from the very start of the bike, and I could not take anything down. Water, Gatorade, waffles, whatever, like didn't go down. So to do it right felt really good.
Sounds like you have just awesome execution through the whole thing so far.
I was prepared, right? Like we spent an hour and a half on a call with Charlie talking about planning. We spent our own time going texting back and forth, talking about planning. Like we had planned, I watched the webinar they put out 2.5 times. Like I watched a video of some guy who has 3 views on YouTube walking through the swim to bike transition. Like I was going to do it, right? Like I was going to treat it how it deserved to be treated. And
There's definitely a theme here that I'm noticing which is like the severity with which you respected the challenge is in direct relation to the way that you performed in it.
Yeah, because I had the experience of not.
Right.
And it sucked.
And that was AC for you.
Yeah. Atlantic City, I mean, I had a kid 6 weeks before, but that like bad planning, right? Bad execution of like, okay, maybe that's not the race you signed up for. You knew 10 months ahead of time when your baby was coming. I stopped training. I didn't look at the course. I didn't have a plan. I was going to do everything on the fly, and it fucking sucked. It was the worst 7 hours of my life. Wasn't happening again. Wasn't investing the time into tribal training, wasn't letting tribal training invest the time into me without taking it serious and giving it the respect it deserved. Also, it's a hard freaking course. It's not Atlantic City, which is 100% flat. And like, you can, for better, you can get through it no matter what. This is not that.
Right. Well, that's awesome, dude. I was super impressed. I was impressed with your swim. I was really impressed with your bike, and hearing like the details of how they went down are just awesome, dude. And it's like you put in the work, and the preparation is kind of like the icing on the cake, right? But like, the intentionality that you brought to training in the 6 months or so, leading into this thing, 7 months, was very noticeable to me. And your commitment to just like the process and getting better. And I love to hear that, you see yourself as somebody who like can really compete and improve in this stuff, because you 1,000% are, dude. You 1,000% are. I knew that was true of you even before this race, but, I just threw out something this morning actually on like, there are some people who do this type of stuff and they kind of get stuck in this kind of beginner performance threshold. And, there's a lot of variables and factors that can kind of keep somebody maybe a little bit stuck from like kind of breaking through to like, how are you actually starting to perform in these and like really viewing yourself as a competitive amateur. And all the parts of that evolution I already see in your process, like taking the swim seriously so that you get the high intensity training, right? A lot of other things as well that aren't necessary to go into right now, but it's awesome that you see that in yourself, dude, because I've seen that in you for a while.
Yeah. And you've mentioned it to me, and I kind of write you off a little bit. Like you say nice things to me. You also have said mean things to me, which is good. Like, I like that. So I know it's not just like saying nice because I pay you money. It's like, no, you're my coach. And there's times where I appreciate being seen, but I've written it off because I didn't take myself in that way. Like I've never done endurance before, like a year ago. Like, why would I be like, this is just a fun activity to, challenge myself and like keep me busy and whatever. Like, we can like get into it, but like I see myself as like a triathlete, right? Like,
is
like
that
an
a shift
athlete.
now after the race?
Yeah. Like I
go.
changed. Yeah. I mean, like I went and, I have a great, like, Ironman took a really good picture of me because I was premeditated for the finish line. And so I went to go change like all my, like, my Twitter and my Telegram and all that picture. And
I noticed
I
that. I
was
loved it.
changing the picture. And I was like, oh, you like, I never used Twitter before, or like I only use it for tribal training. And so I put a little bio and, I put tribal training athlete. And like, I just felt like, I deserve that now, right?
Hell
Like
yeah,
after the
dude.
race. So I deserve that like nomenclature.
Well, I mean, it's a cool just reality of how we view ourselves and our identity. Like you've done the work where it's no longer like it's undeniable. You've just done the work. And then you did the race and you executed the race. And that's just the truth.
Yeah. And no, I mean, it felt, you watch it like inside the group, right? You watch everybody do their race. And a lot of people have, we're in the middle of race season, but like a lot of people have done their race, right? Like Chattanooga, like 10 people did their race. And you're like, so many people are doing their race and they're getting that out of the way. And like, you're still like, I'm an active member, but I would be lying if I felt like there wasn't a little like chip on my shoulder in a sense of like, I haven't done anything within tribal training, right? Like
You haven't raced.
I haven't raced. I haven't represented.
70.3 at least. You did the half marathon.
I did the half marathon, but I like, and I wore the hat, of course, but like I haven't represented the brand and I haven't like represented my team. And like that's what this race was. And the fact that it, we'll get to the run, but like the fact that it came to this amazing experience, amazing conclusion for this chapter. All that like pressure, that chip, that like whatever, like was so worth it to like feel that because it like was all relieved after
amazing.
the race. But
yeah, well, let's get into the run.
Yeah. So park the bike and actually my wife, my 2 kids, they're right there. Like they like we're at the bike transition essentially, like 2 gates over, but like they're where my bike was, like they were right there. And so seeing them for the first time was amazing. I took like 2 salt tab things, some water, finished my water, started doing my blocks, started my blocks because Coach Ryan says you have to take blocks.
You're the block boy.
Yeah, that's a little inside joke. Ryan hates blocks, but
I do not hate blocks. I do not hate blocks. I hate over reliance on small calorie items. That's what it
100%.
is.
I didn't do any blocks.
I hate people telling me they're going to have 8 packs of blocks because dog, you ain't gonna have 8 packs of blocks. You have 1 or 2, which is what you had, 1 or 2, right?
Yeah. And
I was talking to Chelsea during your race, and I was like, I wonder how Matt Bank is going to rotate fueling between blocks and chocolate chips.
Honestly, I would kind of wish I had some chocolate chips. I'm not gonna lie, but well, I'll tell you this. Like, I sent your nutrition podcast to my brother-in-law,
right,
before the race, and he was like, "Fuck, I wish I had this earlier because I was just gonna do a bunch of gels on the bike," and he ended up express shipping like Tailwind. He drank 3 scoops of Tailwind every day, so his like gut would like because he only had like 2 weeks or whatever. And he's a nervous Nelly, but yeah, I mean, like he was that guy because he's training by himself with a training plan, and I promise to everybody listening, like I have done my due diligence in trying to get my family members and in-laws to join tribal training. And now I'm just going to not force it, but like they know it exists and they know there's an opportunity to join. And so one day, but
one thing actually worth mentioning is, so it seemed you and your brother-in-law, you were like basically neck and neck the whole bike.
I had no idea.
You had no idea. Okay.
Yeah.
So I was curious if this was on your mind the whole time. You had no idea.
No idea. Trevor told me when I came out the swim, he said like first out the swim, which I was pumped about because when I did my like little backyard triathlon with my brother-in-law, he was dominating me on the swim because that was a bad swim for me, but no idea where he was.
And again, you guys are relatively comparable athletes, right? I mean, you said he's been doing this for a long time and he's been a runner, right? But generally speaking, you guys are comparable.
In bike and swim, we are comparable. In running, we are not comparable yet.
Okay.
Like we did like the Broad Street run one year, and this was before I was like doing anything, but he ran like 7:04 pace through the Broad Street run. Like he has that in him.
10-mile run.
Like a 10-mile run. Right. Like Will.
You can get to that. Like your
100%, just
trajectory
takes
is
time.
already towards that, right? But
Yeah.
your huge half marathon performance, which you rocked out of the park, what was that pacing again? Like 8:15?
8:26, 8:25. So it's
8:26,
like,
something like
and that
that.
was cruising for, like, that was going hard for me, right? So
Right,
like that
right.
was
Which is an
really hard
amazing run
effort.
for you, right?
Yeah.
But like just objectively, right? He's been running for 10 years.
Right, exactly. So I had no idea he was like a mile or 2 miles behind me the entire bike, I know he didn't pass me, and he actually struggled with the swim. He had a really tough swim. Finished about 10 minutes behind me, or 8 minutes behind me, 7 minutes, I think 10. Um, he like kind of did a panic, kind of just never found his rhythm. Cause like, look,
Which is so
again, go,
interesting, dude, because you guys had the whole swim thing and
yeah.
you were the one panicking, but we
Well,
set the different plan,
we
right?
didn't talk about it on this, but like I, as I had like with my steady cadence on the bike for the swim, I had a steady mindset of breathe every 3, look every 6, right? So I was breathing every 3 strokes, and I like to switch sides, so that works perfectly. And then I would sight every 6. So I would sight every time on my right side. And like I stuck to that for 40 minutes, and
And
I
that
didn't
just
have
kept
to,
you in
it
this
just
engaged process where you're
right.
not thinking about anything else.
And we tried to do that with Joe, my brother-in-law, on like the Saturday drive to um drop off our bikes. But by that time, you have so much going on in your mind. You're like already nervous for the race. You're doing this, like it doesn't work, right? You can't like prepare the day before, right? It's like studying, it's like cramming for a test. So I really attribute like the work we did a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks before to having that like calmness
Nice.
throughout and that execution. So um yeah, so we start the run, and my transition was like 3.5 minutes, which I thought was really good. Um, you start the run, I see my family, I'm like so pumped up. My legs are toast McGhost. My quads
After
are
nearly 4,000 feet of climbing.
absolutely blown up, and they're still in pain. And like, I'm like, okay, it's okay. You know, the run starts with like literally like almost like a probably like 0.7 miles downhill,
Back
which you
down the hill
think,
that you had rode up
right,
at the end of
right,
the
which
bike, right?
which I was like, okay, this is great. I'm going to have a fast run. But it's like, no, downhill when your quads are blown up
Yeah.
is like 20 times worse. So, yeah. So I kept thinking like, okay, my legs are going to come back in 3 miles. Like my first 3 miles are I hate the 3 miles, 0 to 3. And then after that, like 3 to 8 fly by typically, whatever.
Just from training run experience, you mean?
Exactly. They never came back. So I realized this about halfway through that 3 miles. I realized that this about like mile and a half into the run. I went down that hill, and now it's just uphill. Because if you've never been to Penn State, it lives on a hill. It is just a hill. And
The
it
entire
was
campus is basically just positioned on a hill. The top of campus is the top of the hill. The bottom of campus is the bottom of the hill. And this
exactly,
run basically just zigged and zagged all the way through campus, 2 loops.
exactly 2 loops, 843 feet of elevation, which is not something I could replicate here. My half marathon that we alluded to, which was really hilly for me, was 450 feet of elevation. And I thought I was running uphill that entire time. So now it's like double that same distance. So it's just hills. And so I had to quickly like kind of like shift and so I made
Shift
three
what?
non shift just like my head, because my legs
Okay.
were not coming back, right?
Okay.
Like they were toast. And so I had to like make, and this is again, goes back to the work I've done with Jordan, right? Taking him up on all his calls, the
Right.
calls we like our community calls where we just talk about all of this stuff. And it's like, all of this came into this moment of like, okay, you're a mile and a half into a 13-mile run. It's getting fucking hot. Your legs are not existent. And what are you gonna do? And so I made like 3 non-negotiables for the first loop.
In real
One,
time.
in real time. Like this is
Oh, this
as
is
we're going.
impressive, dude.
Like rule 1, you're gonna smile and you're gonna say thank you to every single freaking person. Like you will be smiling the entire time. You will be thanking everybody, every volunteer, every, whatever, everybody who cheers for you, every dog that like is there. You're gonna smile and thank them, and you're not gonna like give in to these people who are walking up these hills. Like this one big guy was like walking up these hills. Like, I'm so fucking tired of these hills. I was like, they told us about the hills, and I just keep running by, right? Like, and I'm just gonna smile and I'm just gonna go. Like that's rule one. Rule two, do not unzip the tribal training suit. And this goes back to like, I took a lot of pride in rocking, first of all, the coolest triathlon suit by like, there's not even a second place, but like, I guess there's like a 10th place, right? Like so many compliments, so many like people said things about it. It's not even close to how much better our suits are than literally anybody else's. Not that it's a competition, but whatever. So I'm not unzipping it, right? I'm going to represent the brand. I'm going to represent the effort. And so for the first loop, like you're going to see the full suit. And I don't know. It kind of goes back to, I was like kind of talking to Jordan. It's like, hockey players walk into the arena in suits. Like they're representing their team. Like they look the part. It was really hot. I wanted to, but like, I'm not doing it for the first loop. And then the last rule was no walking for the first loop, besides aid stations, because that doesn't count. Because you have to walk because you need to fuel. Those are my 3 rules. Did not break them. Mile like 3.5.
So did those just take your mind off of just the suck?
Yeah, if you're smiling and saying thank you 1,000 times, you can't get into this negative headspace. Like it's just not possible. Like you can't be that fake. Like you can't like, you're just like, I must have gotten 15 to 25 comments on my smile. Like, I can't believe you're still smiling. Nice smile. It's like, and every time I just be like, it's the best day. This is great. I love it here. La la la, whatever. And it's like, I'm in a lot of pain. It's hot. It's like got up to like 87 and like 95% humidity. Like it's not, I'm going up like 20,000 hills. Like, I don't care. You can't fake it. Like if you're smiling and you're saying thank you and you're having a positive attitude, you're high-fiving the kids, like you're just going to be happy. And so I think that helped. And like that first loop went by pretty quick. And my brother-in-law did pass me. I saw your comment after the fact.
Yeah. Well, I had no idea about what his capability. I just didn't know what you guys would be like.
Yeah. He passed me at like mile 3.5, which I was pumped about. Like I was pumped to see him doing well.
Yeah.
And pumped that it took him 3.5 miles into the run to pass me. And then he ended up finishing 16 minutes before me. And again, I feel really confident about that.
Right.
Funny enough, my like wife, Alyssa, she did ask like, are you going to be upset if like Joe finishes before you? Because you've been doing like, no, like I expect him to finish. Like he should be upset if I finish before him. Like, because like, he does like a snowshoe half marathon every year. He just broke like the record of the course record. And like, he does like these things, like, it's just like what he's been doing for a long time.
Right.
And so, yeah, I saw him at like mile 3.5, was pumped to see him and, stuck close enough to him. But, yeah, so the first loop, I see my family at the top of a hill. I like stop for a second. I pick up Brooks, my 3-year-old, smooch him, smooch my 11-month-old Caden, smooch my wife. And then, there's some good pictures and it was also important for them to see me like that.
Like what?
Because in Atlantic, like just smiling, happy.
Oh yeah. Nice.
Able to pick up my, like, moving and grooving and like in it and mentally with it. Because in Atlantic City, every time they saw me on the run, I couldn't run. Like I literally could not run. And I was like depressed and I was sad and I was defeated and I'm deflated and I cried 3 times on the run. And my dad had to run with me for like 3 miles and just like make sure I'm okay. And every time I would see my family, it was just like, this is hard. This is right. And it's like, that's their image of what 70.3 is. And it's like, this time it's not happening like that. Like I am happy. And I was. and it was amazing. And so the run went, and this first loop finishes, and I'm just happy. And you start the second loop, and I unzipped it just so you can see like my necklace.
You
Because
just
I
want to
have
cool
like
off. What's the significance or what's the value in unzipping at all? Just giving
I
yourself
was
some more
really hot.
breathing room.
Yeah, I was really hot.
Yeah.
Yeah. Also, it was like a mental, like, okay, look, you did it. Like you said a non-negotiable, you hit that. Like, congrats, that was awesome. I'm not gonna go down to my belly button, right? But
Yeah.
like, look, I have a cool necklace that my wife got me. It has like a dog tag and a B for bank, and like, I rock a Jewish star, and like, okay, you can show that a little bit, right? It still said tribal training across my chest, like, so, but it was really hot. Um, it was really hot, and I did end up walking up like, I think like three separate times. Maybe I walked, maybe four, where it was just like these hills, and I would just set a benchmark of like, okay, you're gonna run when you get to that sidewalk or whatever it is.
So you had the three non-negotiables for the first loop. So when you got to the second loop, were you basically just like, I'm on to the second loop. I'm gonna get this thing done. Let me just kind of grit this thing out a little bit more, or what?
Yeah, I mean, there was never a moment where I was like not
Right.
succeeding, right? Like
Right.
that I felt I've never felt a leg cramp in my entire life. And I played sports my whole life, and everyone's always like, cramping, I'm cramping. I'm like, I don't know what that feels like.
Right.
That day I did. My quad, like I thought and on the first loop, I thought my left quad was actually detaching from my bone, but I couldn't walk. And so this is actually a really good antidote and helpful to listen to podcasts that you do. Because I'm cramping, and I took some more salt because I had like the little salt things in my back, in my kit. And it's not going away. And so I get to an aid station, and I remember, like you were just saying, like Coca-Cola. And so I take like a little piece of banana down, and I take like the little cups of Coke they give you, washed it down with water, and like literally within 15 seconds it was gone. Like the cramp was gone.
Oh,
And I don't think,
wow.
yeah, like I don't think I ever do that, ever experiment, ever try without listening to your experience with it on your 100 miler. I also have a local friend here who's like very good at 70.3s, and he's like, oh yeah, I always do that. I always take Coke. Um, so that was really helpful because it happened like 3 times throughout the race, and every time I would follow like the banana Coke protocol, and it would go away.
Wow. That's huge, dude. That's
Yeah,
huge.
yeah, that was a good one. I mean, every aid station, I took water at the beginning, something like whether it's Gatorade or the electrolyte mix, water at the end,
Hmm.
and then I would, if I needed to, do the banana and Coca-Cola and ice. But the second loop, I was just like, let's go, let's stay steady. But again, it's 900 feet of elevation. It's a lot of climbing, and like I needed to walk. It got so humid at the end, like in the second loop, like it was hard. Um, and so, but yeah, saw my family like 4 or 5 times because it's a really good course for family. Again, could not recommend. It's hard, but could not recommend this race more. Do I need to do it again? I don't know, but like it's such a cool experience.
Nice.
So many volunteers, kids who are in college, kids who are at camp there, so many families, and little like youth hockey teams. Like it was just really cool. Running through my old campus, um, and then yeah, finishing. You know,
How did it feel to come into the stadium?
it was cool. I don't think it was as cool as I thought it was going to be. And
Why?
if I had to do one, how can you make this better? Like, I think the concept of finishing on like the 50-yard line is really cool. I think like Beaver Stadium, awesome. Going through the tunnel is pretty cool. But because you're on a NCAA Big Ten football field, they're not going to let fans on the like right next to you. right? Like, and when I see your video of like the Ironman finish line, like there's no energy like an Ironman finish line, you lose that because there's not people
Oh,
right there, right? There's some people in the stands, but it holds 110,000 people. The
so it
50
feels a
people in
little
the
empty
stands,
almost.
yeah, it is empty. Um, and so, you get the personal moment, like you get to like cross, but it's not like that, whoosh, like that energy of like, holy, I just did it.
Yeah.
Um, it makes up for that because you get a lot of that throughout the entire race,
Yeah.
but you don't get that like finish line moment.
Yeah.
Um,
That's interesting.
yeah. So really cool concept going on to Beaver Stadium, but like you're also like pretty tired at that point and like you don't really like take it in. And they get you out, right? Like they're so good at taking the tracker off and like giving you the medal, giving you the hat, and like all of a sudden you're back in a tunnel somewhere under the stadium. And that's when I
Right.
saw my family again. Um, and they give you some ice cream like from the creamery, which is nice, and
Oh, that's pretty cool.
you're done.
So what was
Um,
how have you reflected on the experience and how has it been different than what you were expecting? Because it seems like you had sent me some message that was like basically like, kind of like my experience or my breakthrough, whatever you want to call it, was totally different than I was expecting.
yeah, and it was. First of all, I don't think there was a moment, right?
Like a single moment, you mean?
Yeah, and you like talk, if you're listening to this, I have to assume you've listened to the Zion podcasts because they're amazing. But like you kind of hear like all these people, like their individual moments of like, whoa. And like there is kind of a moment, or there's like there's an impetus, or there's like a climax of some sort. And I just felt like there wasn't that in this race. And I'm like thinking back, and we had talked about how I'm going back to my old campus and how when I was at Penn State, I was really cool, but I was such a dickhead until I met my wife. And I was not a nice person. And I was just, it was the classic case of like a kid who was like kind of bullied when he was younger and now becomes like a little bit of a bully um, when he's older, right? Like that's kind of where I lived in that state.
Bro, you were a frat star.
I was
Me
like
too, but you were actually a cooler frat star than I was at Penn State.
it was cool to say I was back then, and now it's just like cringe.
Yeah, tell me about it.
Like it was cool to be in the Fall 10 Frat Stars Facebook group. But now it's just like, oh my God, I hate myself. But and so, again, like we had talked and we had talked with Goldstein, like how I'm going back and I'm not that person, and I'm a nice guy now, and I'm this and I'm that. I'm like a family guy, and I'm committed and whatever it is. And I didn't get that. What I got was um having a really hard experience like this. If you are if you approach it with an open heart, and you approach it authentically, your authentic self will just naturally find a way back. And I believe that's what happened is my authentic self is the smile, is the thank yous, is the waving, is the high fives to the kids, is the representing and feeling the pride in representing a team and a family and myself, but mostly a team and my family. And that is who I have always been. And when you get into like these different realms of life, you go to college, or you go to work, and you kind of have to put a mask on sometimes. You lose it, right? And so without something like this, without something like tribal training or endurance or something really that allows you that path to regain that authentic self, it stays hidden, or it stays masked. And I think this experience opened up to like, hey, like you've always been this guy. He got a little lost through years, and like, call it hyperdrive in the last 6 months. He's back. And that was like my overall, as I reflect, like that didn't happen in one climbing up this hill. It happened throughout the entire race of feeling happy and smiling and feeling at peace and feeling proud and prideful and grateful. And so it was the best experience and the best day. And to come full circle and to have the experience with Charlie at the end, it was, again, that's who I am, right? That's who I've always been. It's okay. Yes, we're going to sprint home. I need to get out of these clothes. And then we're going to sprint back and we are going to catch Charlie. And we see Charlie. Great. He's entering the stadium. Awesome. Let's somehow just figure out how to run into the stadium so we can cheer him when he's into the stadium. Let's figure out how to run out of the stadium so we're there when he's gets out and we can again. And like I can barely walk at this point, but somehow I'm sprinting. And so, Trevor's there with me. My brother-in-law was there, like, because we all, he had become friends. And so that's who I am. And, that's that's what happened. That's what happened throughout this whole process. And so it was amazing.
That was so beautifully said, dude. I'm gonna have to clip that for you. That was really, really
Yeah.
well put together. Every way that you just phrased that was perfect, dude. And I think that in listening to the Zion podcast, right? Like, there may be the perception that it's this aha moment in the moment, but I think the more real way that all comes about is in the reflection of the moment. And to me, you know, perhaps it's you making, those three non-negotiables at the start of the run. Like maybe that's kind of the moment, right? But it doesn't need to be, and it often isn't like this earth-shattering time stands still type thing. Getting in the arena, sometimes there are situations like that, right? But I would say that even through the Zion experience, right, having been there, it was like you're so in the thing that the thing is just unfolding and you're just participating in the thing. And then it's the reflection upon the thing that is like, oh shit, that's really where that went down. And this is what I've observed now that I've sat back and looked at this differently. And for me, just like hearing about your story, who knows, maybe it's a different moment, right? I mean, it's awesome to hear how well the swim went. It's awesome to hear how well the bike went. Like, to me, I've been seeing you right, understand yourself more as this true athlete and this dude who can throw the fuck down. Right. And it's awesome that you can be told a million times that you're a great athlete or that you had a great training session or that you can do it, right? And I can encourage you to the moon. But there's some parts of the human experience that we just got to experience for us to really understand, right? That's where the depth of knowing comes from, is experience. And it certainly sounds like you had that. And it's also just awesome that the run was a grind and that you got a lot out of it personally, and that you oriented yourself in real time. That's like, honestly, maybe the thing I'm most impressed with hearing all this. Usually, I would expect to hear somebody grinding through the run and they kind of just hold on and they kind of just figure out how to get through it, not miserably, but like for you to have like the awareness in the moment to set those non-negotiables and then to act them out and to hold them true. Maybe the coolest part of the whole story that you've shared is that it was really important for you to look good and happy in front of your family. That's like fucking awesome. I love that.
Yeah. I mean, it's a hard event, right? All these are hard. And your family sees you go through it. And like, I there's, and Jordan and I were talking about this, like there's part of your brain that wants people to know you're struggling, right? Like this is hard and this is hard for me. So I'm gonna look like it, like how I feel, which is like grumpy and angry and say negative things. And like you need to know how hard I'm working and I'm gonna show you through my actions and my face and whatever. And I think that's how I felt the first race, right? Like I needed everybody to know that I am struggling, right? I have cried. Can't run. My heart rate's a million, like literally 189, like whatever. I needed everybody to know that. This one, I needed everybody to know how much fun I was having.
Nice.
And so yeah. And to touch on the compliment that you gave me, it was well said, because I always say after you say something like that, like when we're sharing that, I was like, I know that was probably jumbled. That one I actually felt really good because I have 8 pages of like a journal that I've just been like unloading, right? And one of my main takeaways is like nothing replaces hard work. And I could have the best attitude in the world, but if I didn't do the 6 months of work, like, cool, nice attitude, bro. Like, you're not finishing the race, and you're not doing well. And like, same thing goes with I've been journaling and writing thanks to tribal training, like thanks to like the encouragement here since like the beginning of March. If I don't do that, then I can't do it today and expect it to be meaningful and expect to get what I'm getting, right? Like that's what the Zion podcasts were so inspiring, obviously because of the effort, but also like to take the time to really dive into yourself and really dive into the experience. Like I want to do that for all the things I do. It might not
Mhm.
be 14 podcasts, but it could be my own version. And so it was awesome. And I'm so pumped about it. And I left it and I sent you a message like, I'm ready to be an athlete, right? Like I'm ready to train. I'm ready to like go. And I don't know what that looks like, but I know it looks like elevating where we are at today because this needed to happen. Like this moment needed to happen. It's great. And I was like, nothing was more in your face. Like that's an awesome moment. Time to move on. Than going on Strava on Monday and seeing 0 0 0 0 0 0 0 of like what you've done this week. And like, I know you were in sales and I'm in sales and like that's how sales works. But like for some reason seeing that, I was like, game on. All right, cool. Like what's next? So thank you for providing the moment and letting, obviously I have to comply, but like I know without tribal training, without you, without Jordan, without the entire team, without the calls, without the podcast, without the content, without the conversations, this is my last 70.3. Thanks a lot, Iron Man. I'll talk to you when I talk to you. And I'm done. But couldn't be more opposite. And that's just due to what you built. So yeah, man.
That's beautiful, dude. I'm gonna let it end on that, but I want to sprinkle in one other thing on your delivery of the monologue a minute ago. You've been showing up to the team calls and you've had opportunities to share in front of the group, right? And usually you do jab yourself a little bit and say that it might have been jumbled, but those are all just reps, dude. Those are reps. And it's really clear from my perspective that you are putting in the reps on all these different areas that you want to grow in. And so it's no surprise from, somebody, observing you that you're getting better at the things that you are doing consistently.
Yes. And I'm actually going to end it in one other moment. And that's just giving Charlie his time. And I know
Yeah,
this
yeah,
is
yeah.
my recap, but like he's part of the story. And like there's a funny picture of me next to Charlie and me like kind of lifting my head in jest because I'm 5'7" and he's 6'9", and there's no tippy toes to make it like, look similar. You said it best, like there's probably no feat in tribal training to the like date that is really comparable because of course 100 miles is really hard and all these like feats are amazing, but like he's physically capped, right? He's 6'9", he's 280 pounds. Like you cannot change that really, right? Like there's no mental strength to climb 3,800 feet on a bike. And I just have to give him all the props to finish under the time cap by 90 seconds, um, to not give up, to get on that like run and put in good times. Like he
His
was
run was
averaging like
very fucking
12-minute
impressive.
miles
Very impressive.
in like it was and it was, I'm just so grateful that I got to witness it and to experience it and to become his friend and to watch that go down, because I have told so many people about it because it is so
It's the coolest thing
inspiring.
ever, dude. He's 6'9". He's 6'9".
People, you can't, it's impossible to really get. And so pumped for him. And I'm so proud of just to be his teammate. And so we'll end it there. But thank you for the space. Thank you for letting me share. And thank you for the experience the last 6 months. And I'm pumped for the next 60 years and keep it going. And if you're not in tribal training, think about it. There's only, only a little, you can't let everybody in.
Can't let everybody in.
So yeah, man. So cool.
Absolutely, dude. It's been an honor to hear this. And thanks for all you've poured into it. We will keep the process rolling. I'll talk to you again soon. See you, dude.
Yes, sir.
Later.
Peace.